private aviation is an example of something where people are starting to pay more attention. And but when people who go to Davos to talk about climate change fly private, it seems like they don't want to make.
Well, they actually, I've talked to them about it. They offset. They buy offsets, they offset, and they are working harder than most people I know to be able to try to affect this transition.
Right.
They offset. They have to fly private because it's an offset. Don't you understand? These people are saving humanity, so they deserve to live better lives than you, peasant. Just give up your car. Joining me now, my friend Mark Morano, author of the book, The Great Reset. Mark, I've argued this. You're more of an expert on the subject than I am, but I argue that John Kerry, he flies private not because he's a hypocrite. Of course he's a hypocrite. He just sees himself as above you, above me. Yes. You're a peasant, Mark. You give up your car, you go home. But King John, well, of course the king gets to do things that Mark and Jesse don't get to do. That's simple.
I mean, he literally almost said exactly what you said, what you laid out there. When he went to Iceland to pick up an environmental award, I think it was 2019, and they had a local Icelandic reporter ask him, and he said basically the equivalent of when the police officer pulls over the politician, "Do you know who I am?" He said his work was so important that he couldn't be flying commercial because he had to get places and get things done because he's doing the yeoman's work of saving the planet. And they literally believe this. Whether it's people like Bernie Sanders or Hillary Clinton, they had their private jet scandal, Pete Buttigieg. They literally talk about keeping fossil fuels in the ground so the planet doesn't get harmed, but they can't stop using fossil fuels lavishly at 20,000 feet. It's that simple.
Mark, do you think, and I look, I'm a cynic, I'm a natural cynic. I don't believe any of these people actually believe in climate change. Don't get me wrong. I know a bunch of the IQ of 50 people at the bottom do, but none of the John Kerry, Barack Obama, Klaus Schwab types, none of these people believe any of this stuff. And that makes it so uniquely evil because they're selling it just for naked money and power, right?
Yeah, I mean, you can tell they don't believe it because they're not. I interviewed the old UN IPCC chairman, Rajendra Pachauri. He bragged that he lived at 30,000 feet, just flying from conference to conference. If they believed a word of what they were saying, they would not be living the way they do. They would actually live in fear. Their families, they would be telling them to scale back. We need to set an example. But obviously, none of them believe it. But you're right. They have a lot of true believers in the movement. But it's not the people we see at the World Economic Forum, the United Nations, or the World Health Organizations when they declare climate the existential threat. They know one thing, Jesse, and it's very simple. And you open with the phrase climate communism. I wouldn't have used that word 3 years ago because I always thought, oh, that turns people off. It sounds like you're red baiting. But that's exactly what we're dealing with now because they will openly tell you this is the best method by which to control the masses, which is us, Jesse. And they are doing it. In fact, John Kerry going after not just our transportation and climate regulations and our energy, but he's now expanding into our food production. John Kerry is going to be shutting down meat production in the United States. We got to get our high yield agriculture down. It's harming the planet. But don't worry, the elites have a plan and they're going to help farmers. They're going to help them adapt to the new technology that's necessary. Well, I got news for you, Jesse. Small, family-owned, generational farms aren't going to be able to adapt. But guess who will? People like Bill Gates, #1 farmlander, people like China, big equity asset firms, big agribusiness. They'll be able to absorb all the climate compliance costs in the world. That's where we're headed with this.